Hi everyone, we're now in week 3 of our session. I hope everyone's doing well. Today I'll be going over my presentation titled The Art of Public Administration. The theorist I've chosen to do my presentation on is Herbert A. Simon. In his paper, Simon termed the concepts of bounded rationality and satisficing. Bounded rationality pretty much is taken into account the limitations that we have as human beings. We have cognitive limitations. We can only observe so much information and pull so many experiences out of our minds to make a certain decision. Information imperfection, usually in organizations and administrations, while it'd be ideal to have all the information, all the data sets regarding a certain policy decision that's about to be made, a lot of times the information is very choppy or not all intact, and you have to work off of parts of information for certain decisions. And the big constraint is time. We don't have all the time in the world to look at all the scenarios and outcomes and the possible consequences of some of the decisions that we might make in policies going forward. So these three make up the bounded rationality concept that he termed. And because of our limitations as human beings, we end up satisficing, and which ends up with us making suboptimal decisions versus the best, most efficient decisions that we can make at the organization level. Another thing with Simon is I'll take a closer look at span of control, which he touches in his paper. Simon is a huge fan of proverbs. He uses proverbs as examples throughout his article in the text. One of the reasons why he likes proverbs is because they occur in contradictory pairs. One of the examples in the text was look before you leap versus he who hesitates is lost. So these are clear contradictory from one another. And the reason why he likes using these in terms of applying them to public administration organizations is that there's multiple viewpoints when looking at an organization and how it's structured and how they move forward with policy decisions. Up until this point, there's been a certain number of administrative principles that have been widely accepted in the realm of public administration and organization. So the three more common ones are specialization. This is where we get the division of labor and the departments, where each department specializes in the certain tasks and has certain goals set out for them. We have hierarchy. So here we have a laid out chain of command, very strict and organized, how information is moved from bottom up or top down. And we also have the concept of a span of control, and how up until now it's been accepted that a smaller span of control is better for the organization, for efficiency. And for efficiency, I mean, all three of these are vital for increasing administration efficiency, depending on how each of these three principles are organized. And I'm going to focus my example on span of control. But throughout his text, Simon breaks down each of these three principles and uses proverbs to kind of analyze them from multiple points of views. It was kind of funny throughout the article. He kept bringing up Gulick and kind of using him as a punching bag for his own concepts. So I thought that was kind of entertaining. Up until this point in the study of public administration, it was widely accepted that the most efficient definition of span of control was that the efficiency was enhanced by limiting the number of subordinates underneath every manager or authority type figure. So this meaning maybe like a manager would have no more than 6 subordinates that he would be in charge of. And the theory behind this was the less people authority figure had be in charge of, the more control he had over those individuals, and thus enhance the efficiency within that group. But Simon in his article felt that this wasn't always the case. He had a contradictory proverb to this scenario. And his proverb was efficiency is enhanced by keeping number of organizational levels at a minimum. So in his article, Simon was saying that maybe sometimes by applying the definition of limiting the number of subordinates, you're adding extra layers of bureaucracy to their organization, unnecessary bureaucracy, and in turn just adding a bunch of red tape, because now you're having to go through so many different levels of authority to move along vital information throughout the organization. So for my example on his clear distinction between what was commonly widely accepted to what he thought was a more accurate view of span of control, we're going to use my work, wastewater operator. So I work at a wastewater treatment plant for a water district, and a scenario that happened not too long ago. So we were at the plant, and we ran across this automated water valve that was kept malfunctioning. So we contacted the electrical services department, and we talked to the operators, and we let them know that the valve was malfunctioning and we needed to get it fixed. The operator then went to their senior to see if they could get a replacement parts needed to fix the water valve. The senior couldn't do it because they needed the proper PO numbers, and it turns out that the water valve that was malfunctioning was a European water valve, so they wouldn't be able to get the spare parts in time for another 3 to 4 weeks. So this information then came back down to the basic operator and then back to us. So with the information being that we weren't going to be able to get a water valve replacement for 3 to 4 weeks, we then passed the information up to our senior, and then which then passed that information up to the supervisor. Supervisor sat on that piece of information for a few days and decided that we can't wait 3 to 4 weeks to get this valve fixed. So then he decided that it was best to just get rid of that water valve altogether and bypass it. So then he sends his instructions down to the senior operator and down to us at the bottom to contact mechanical services. And with mechanical services, the whole plan was to just eliminate that water valve, take it out of the picture, and just bypass the whole system. So then talking to the mechanical services operator, the plan, they talked to their senior, and then their senior talked to their supervisor, because this was going to be a big project. It wasn't going to be a simple replacement of a valve. So then from their supervisor, from the mechanical services side, I guess they thought this was an inefficient approach to dealing with the problem. So they decided that they weren't going to do the removal of the water valve, and they wanted to wait for the replacement water valve to arrive from Europe. So then this information came all the way back down, back to us, in which we then relayed the information back to our senior, which then relayed it back to our supervisor. And our supervisor wasn't too excited with the mechanical services team not wanting to replace the valve how he had requested. So then the supervisors from both departments started talking to each other, and they had a little bit of a butting heads on how to go best move forward on the dilemma. And eventually they had to go up and have a meeting with more higher ups about how to deal with the situation to the director of operations. Now here you can see clearly the different levels of authority figures in the span of control, and it definitely adds to the red tape. One solution that would have made this a lot simpler and eliminated a lot of the red tape was if we got rid of the electrical services department, got rid of the mechanical services department, not necessarily the departments themselves, but the authority figures within those departments. And instead, if we would have just looked at the treatment plant as its own organization or entity, and that way the treatment plant itself had its own electrical services operator, us as wastewater treatment operators, and a mechanical services operators, a dedicated specialized individual from each department dedicated just to the wastewater treatment plant, then all communication lines go straight up to the senior, to the supervisor, and then the supervisor can bring down his decisions and ultimate guidelines to each of the different individuals in the department. And this already clearly shows a less cluttered chain of command and bureaucracy in the department. Yes, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I think this proverb shows the strength in Simon's theories on public administration, in that there's no concrete right or wrong way to structure a public administration, as long as at the end of the day that administration is able to obtain its goals and objectives that it set out for itself. And it does this through bounded rationality and satisficing, which are more based on reality and what occurs in real-world scenarios. One of the weaknesses from his theories is he might be trying to oversimplify public administration and its complexities. In his article, he states that maybe administration, instead of being viewed so much as a science, it could be viewed as an art where experience is key. And while this has some truth to it, you still require logic in order to make good policy decisions, and you can't entirely rely on proverbs for all the answers. Congratulations, you've made it to the end. Thanks for watching my video. I'm very interested to see how other people interpreted the different theorists from this week's readings. Looking forward to all the presentations. Thanks.